morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. We have a returning guest, Mr. Max Berre, today. So welcome back, Max.
Glad to be back.
And you are all the way from the French Riviera, a little bit jealous myself. But we have talked many, many times about renewable energy and ESG, finance, how everything's connected, chain reactions. But you triggered something when we spoke yesterday with storage. Because primarily when people think of renewable energy and storage of that electricity, they think lithium ion batteries. And
Right.
You have quite a bit of information on new technology. So please share with us.
Okay. I guess what we can say about the battery, the energy storage market is that the most important thing is that it's definitely going to grow as renewables grow. So that means as renewables grow in market share, or as the renewable energy generation market grows, period, right?
Okay.
And I think the reason why is also pretty intuitive, in the sense that we definitely need to cover the gaps and the shortfalls between supply and demand as they occur.
Yeah.
Which, okay, when we're dealing with renewables, it's always possible to just burn more coal when you get some shift in demand, but you can't do that with solar energy. You can't do that with wind energy. So on one hand, what can be done is to try to have more diversification, right? So basically, that way you've got solar generation covering when wind isn't producing, and vice versa. But it also directly means that we're going to need to cover this shortfall with energy storage. And I guess, interestingly enough, there is a bit of financial math that can be applied there, because one of the main financial risk metrics is actually called expected shortfall, and that's supposed to be for the loss. And that's supposed to be an amount of money that you set aside to insure against portfolio losses.
Okay.
But that same math can also be applied to calculate how big your energy storage capacity should be, given the size, volatility, and diversification of your energy generation capability.
Here, I thought you were getting all tough with calculations. I was got a little scared there.
Well, it doesn't need to be. I mean, everyone understands putting aside a few bucks for a rainy day, and then everyone understands that financial markets do that too. Once you've got a portfolio, you need to cover sort of your potential losses.
Yeah.
The only thing to say is that the exact same kind of calculation that you would use for in a portfolio situation is what you would also use, or what you could also use in an energy storage situation.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned technologies
Yes.
a moment ago.
I love technology.
We all love technologies.
Yes. Well, I know some people that are just like, nope, don't care, but I love it.
All right. Well, so you are quite right in saying that lithium ion batteries are one of the more dominant technologies at the moment.
Yeah.
And there's a clear reason for that, right? On one hand, we're talking about there's a couple of important things about its performance, right? So lithium ion has some major advantages. First, in the fact that you can scale it up or scale it down as much as you need to, right? Just extreme examples. Most of your watch batteries, right, and most mobile phone batteries, these are lithium ions.
Yes.
On the other hand, there's also electric vehicle batteries, which are lithium ion.
Yep.
And as far as I'm aware, one of the ways to have an energy storage battery facility, which I'm aware which as far as I'm aware is a technique that has been used in the Japanese market, is to essentially sort of construct a modular facility where you just shelve a large number of vehicle batteries and connect them, right? And
Oh,
if you
very
do that,
cool. Okay.
if you do that to the scale of a garage or a warehouse, you've got a storage facility.
Very cool.
So I guess lithium ion really lends itself to this flexible scalability more than a lot of the other technologies, and also it should be noted that that lithium ion has some advantages in terms of its power density, right? So basically, you can have a viable battery with even very small sizes, right?
Very true. Yeah, and the cost has come down over the years, so it is more economically feasible.
Yes, also cost.
Yeah.
Now that being said, I should mention some of the other battery technologies, and you'll see that someday that they're going to develop as soon as they can start to get competitive with lithium ion on those scales.
Yeah.
But it often depends on context, right? So one storage technology which is actually bigger than lithium ion in the Japanese market, but not in the overall global market, is pumped hydro, right?
Yeah, you mentioned that. Tell me all about that.
Okay, so pumped hydro is essentially using hydroelectric plants, dams, reservoirs, and basically pumping water uphill as a storage method, and then letting it flow downhill, let's say from one reservoir to another, via past a series of turbines. So basically converting potential energy to kinetic energy to electricity, which goes out into the grid, and vice versa, right? And so this is actually the dominant storage technology on the Japanese market, owing to the country's mountainous terrain.
Okay, that makes sense. Sense.
So you could expect, if you would see an extremely mountainous country with a huge energy market, that pumped hydro would be big. On the other hand, if you would look at a pretty flat country like the Netherlands, maybe not so much.
A little harder.
Yeah. So in that sense, we've got pumped hydro. It's big, it's reliable, and the technology's been around for a while, but it's got the shortcomings that you need to have the geography for it, and you need to have the scale for it. I mean, obviously, you could never establish residential size or like neighborhood size pumped hydro facilities. It would really need to be a really substantial size, and it would be attached to like a city's grid, for example, right?
Okay. I mean, so we've got the pumped hydro in mountainous regions. What do people do in the flatlands? I mean, if they can't rely on lithium, because lithium, just so the audience knows, lithium is a rare element. We have to mine it. We have to pull it out of the ground. There's a lot of metals and minerals in the lithium ion battery, including cobalt, which is not great because I believe it's mined out of Congolese. Is that correct? I forget which country. They basically use child labor, so this is bad.
Yeah, the DR Congo is one of the places where we do gather cobalt, and it is classed as a conflict mineral.
Yes.
So like here in the EU, there's a lot of worry about conflict minerals, because people always stereotype that as being the diamonds.
Yes.
But in fact, besides cobalt, you also have coltan, which goes into our mobile phones, uranium, and all these come from conflict zones, basically.
Fantastic! I did not know about the other two. Oh.
Venezuela also exports cobalt, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
But that's, as you can see by the news of the situation there, that's its own, let's say,
Not great.
complication. Yeah.
So we do need diversification. We do need
we do
storage capabilities.
And so, yeah, what I'd like to say on that front is that, broadly speaking, you could classify them into two, right? So you've got your battery-based storage technologies, and you've got your mechanical, physical storage technologies, right? And now the thing about the mechanical and physical ones, these are the ones which really are large scale and depend more on geography. Whereas your battery-based, you can deploy them anywhere, you can scale them anywhere, but there's usually some kind of let's say tax on the environment there.
Yeah. Coming
from owing to the fact that, listen, what is able to efficiently store electricity is usually some pretty heavy, pretty toxic metals, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
This is one thing that needs to be kept in mind with energy storage markets. I mean, yes, they enable broadly the renewable energy generation market to exist and function, but they're not without cost, right?
Exactly. It does have a rather negative side effect. I mean, there's a lot of minerals and precious metals that go into it, and apparently we are terrible at recycling these things. I don't know why, but we are not good at that. And sorry.
I think that's probably really the sort of leading edge of our technology at this point in time. Like, we really have yet to develop the technology to, let's say, efficiently take apart what they call here in Europe e-waste, right? So we call like spent electronics and spent electronic components, and at the same time we have yet to develop non-toxic batteries which are commercially viable.
Yeah.
Although there's been some kind of interesting, really exotic things on the drawing board in that respect.
Oh, can you share anything?
Yeah. So basically, I want to say that there are that biological energy storage is possible, although it's not commercially viable as far as I'm aware at the moment, right? And biological energy storage, basically, we're getting into some GMO, some genetically modified organisms, and there we're talking about like plants, like highly acidic plants, like rhubarb is apparently one. And the first time I read about rhubarb based battery, like rhubarb juice based batteries, like they didn't want to admit that that's what it was called, so they just called it like biological battery, but it's rhubarb.
You're running a car on rhubarb.
Well, I think it'll be a while before we're able to run a car on rhubarb.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just the imagery is hysterical. I'm just imagining.
Hilarious, this. Indeed. And another really exotic one that caught my imagination was that it's possible to have bacterial energy storage, right?
Okay.
So that means that we've got like genetically modified bacteria that can store a charge, and so basically you could have like a petri dish, or a bottle, right?
Yeah.
With these with a bacterial colony in it acting as a battery.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I think that's something that we're not gonna see in the markets in the immediate term, but but the technologies are being researched. So someday in the distant future, we may see them hit commercial markets. And I'd love to send you a paper about bacterial energy storage, because when I first read about it in 2015, and I had a great day reading about it.
I can imagine. It's like, so we can run off bacteria and root vegetables.
Someday. So like I said, it's in the research phase, and so what that means is that we're able to detect that some life forms and some organic compounds are able to are able to store energy. That's not the same as saying that they're able to power a mobile phone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That
but
is too funny.
But to get back to, I think what actually is closer to being market viable, right?
Yeah.
You may remember that there was something that there was a technology that the Obama administration was interested in called a redox flow battery.
I'm not familiar with that.
A redox flow battery, basically the idea is that instead of having like a stable battery, like think of a car battery, which has like a negative and a positive side,
Yeah.
And basically a membrane between them. What you've got with redox flow batteries is that you have tanks which represent tanks of liquid which represent negative and positive, which flow past each other, and that's how they discharge energy.
Wow.
Now I remember that during the Obama administration, there was a technology called vanadium redox flow battery, which is, if I remember correctly, an interesting plus point about it is that it's a chemical which changes color based on its charge, right? So you actually don't need expensive testing equipment to know whether you're dealing with to know how highly charged the thing is, right? So that would save on its cost.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the tanks that we're talking about are basically trucks, right? They're like the storage part of a truck, in terms of size. So it means, for example, that you could, with 3 or 4 trucks, set up an energy storage facility at a remote outpost, for example.
Oh, that'd be very cool.
Yeah.
That would be very necessary, actually.
Yeah, I think so. But I think that if we're able to make some progress with that technology in the future, if we're able to have flow batteries which are more energy dense, it might be the case that we might start seeing in office buildings that there might be like a flow battery based in the basement floor of an office building, for example. That might be viable in the future.
And could run the whole office building on that?
Yeah.
Wow, that would be awesome. That would be fantastic, because
well, you could imagine, for example, if we had a flow battery in the basement and a series of solar panels on the roofs and windows, then we were talking about like office towers which would be energy self-sufficient.
Oh, we need that. We need that desperately.
Oh, well, I think as far as the generation technology goes, at least that part already exists, right? Like photovoltaic windows already exist, right?
Yeah, we're just a little slow to get them on buildings because, I mean, there's a lot of, so I'm pretty active with politics lately and policy. There's so much red tape to put on solar panels and get approvals and permits and hookups, and it's just not very easy. I think that we need to get rid of some red tape and start passing some laws saying just put the solar panels up, we need them.
Sure. Well, I can imagine that that these things would have their complication. Like as far as I know, like I don't know how the situation is in California, but I know that in the German market and in the Japanese market they have feed-in tariffs, right?
Yeah, we have.
Right. So basically, if you're gonna buy renewable energy at a subsidized price, that necessarily means that there's going to be some red tape involved, right? Taxpayers are going to want to know where their money's going.
Yeah, we never do, though. We always demand we want to know where it's going, but in reality, we never actually know.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm learning so much now that I'm getting more involved in the government side and politics side and policy writing. And when I realized more taxes to pay for these programs that go into place, it's like, well, what about all the other taxes you guys have been collecting for the past few decades? And then you realize there's not a whole lot of accountability, and it's troublesome.
See, my big question here is what is it relates more to the return on investment with all these things, because I mean, let's be honest, if we're talking about building infrastructure and upgrading our technology level,
yeah,
there's going to be economic returns, right?
One would hope.
So so that immediately generates a couple of questions, right? Like how much returns are we talking about, where, and what's happening with the money? What happens to the money?
And actually, we're able to, when you have a public-private partnership, PPP loans,
right.
there is accountability, because the private side, they want to know what their return is going to be.
Sure.
They have their accounting measures in place, and they check it because they actually have investors that want to know their returns. So I'm a huge fan of those, because it does kind of keep everybody on the same page. As with public entities, I don't know. I'm not really privy to it, so I honestly don't know.
Well, I would hope that these kind of things become a matter of public record. Like, I know that at the federal level in the States, there's the Congressional Budget Office, which basically does that, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I know that at the transnational level, the OECD does publish figures for various things that they follow. They do publish figures which involve cost, which used to involve ROIC, so return on invested capital. Okay. Now they use IRR, which is internal rate of return, but same idea basically, right? And so, for example, if you look at the OECD Healthcare at a Glance report, or if you look at the Education at a Glance report, basically they will do the numbers for all the member nations based on the official figures that those member nations report. And OECD, I think, is 35 countries, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So there's accountability. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Big fan of that. That.
Also, presumably, if we're talking about 35 nations reporting their official figures to the OECD, presumably they're also reporting those figures to their public.
Presumably.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to assume they are. I just had to throw that out there. I'm a bit of a cynic. We know this. But no, the storage ideas, and we're coming up to our 30 minutes, but the storage capacity is huge, necessary. The new technology that you're letting us know about, I'm just going to name you ESJ's lead tech correspondent. That's your new title.
That would be great for me. I'd love that.
Yeah, because you have all this cutting edge information that you're letting us know about and sharing with the public, because quite honestly, the public needs to know what's going on.
Well, to be fair, not all of it is really like new cutting edge, because if we talk about the mechanical stuff, right? A lot of that the technology has been around for a while, right? Because
I know that. Yeah, I'm just saying, for the general public, if you ask them about storage for renewable energy, they're going to say, lithium ion batteries, and that's all they're going to know about.
I understand.
And there's a whole world of different tech out there, and we're just letting them know what's out there, because sharing knowledge, communication, outreach, this is what we do.
Happy to be a part of it.
Yes, and you've been an integral part. I mean, this is our second or third interview. Second. I can't remember. Second, okay, because Max will be a returning guest with all the new tech that he learns about, all the new info, and plus I can live vicariously through the fact that he lives on the Riviera in France. So, well,
the number of people, the number of people down here who dream about California is not to be ignored, right? Like,
really? Oh, right on.
Huge. Actually, a funny thing is that when you tour fashion shops around here, just as an example, and luxury goods shops, you see a lot of Americana for sale, right? Like these American style like Letterman jackets, or college sweaters. And so I actually graduated from American University, which is in Washington D.C. So I've got my old college sweaters, and people ask to buy them. Like, can we $50, $60, $100? Give us your sweater, your ratty old sweater from when you were still in college. Which
that's amazing.
Full disclosure, doesn't fit me anymore, right? Like,
well, none of us really quite fit into those things from college anymore. it happens.
Indeed.
The way it is. So thank you, Max. This is awesome. Definitely having back. Let's just keep talking about renewable energy storage and all the new tech out there, because there are leaps and bounds of technology and startups and entrepreneurs. It's amazing.
Yeah, actually, that gives me a lot of hope. I wanted to say that, you know, the one thing that's special about California in this respect is that, you know, you've got that big startup space, right? Like, it's big in the world of startups, and the thing is that, you know, a certain percent of that is going to be getting into the clean tech sector, because I mean, let's be honest. The old stuff, the old technology which already exists, so your pumped hydro and also pumped air, which uses old mine, like salt mines and stuff, for the same technology. Okay, that doesn't have startups. That doesn't need startups behind it. But what does need startups are some of the more exotic, under-researched stuff that I mentioned. For example, biological energy storage. And where is the startup capital in the world market? It's basically in California, right? So
that is very true. We have a lot of very smart people here. We just need to push forward and just get those startups funded.
And also a major advantage is that California has the capital and the environment that it attracts smart people from other markets. Like, there's actually a bit of a supply chain of local startups, you know, here in the EU, in, you know, the French market or the Belgian market or the Dutch market, who basically aim one day get themselves onto the US venture capital scene, and they're targeting New York and California, right? So that means that technology that gets developed over here, if it's getting developed by startups, there is sort of a natural sort of supply chain that's going to bring it to California.
Well, since I live here, I personally love that, but I'm also for the benefit of everybody worldwide. This is a whole worldwide initiative. We need to get the technology to everybody. So we could talk for hours, Max. You and I have talked for hours. So I will let everybody
Always
go.
a pleasure.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so fun just learning these things. So we'll have you back probably, I'm thinking 3 weeks. We'll just kind of continue rolling this through, same time, same everything. And we'll see you guys later. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.